culture, do it for the culture, do it for the culture, do it for the culture. I gotta grind, I gotta shine.
It's for the
It's my time.
culture.
Hey, but I'm
Hey, 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 kings and queens. It is your girl, the one and only Tay Jordan. This is another episode of For the Culture podcast. This is actually episode 9. And I know I say this every episode, but I am really, I guess I'm excited for every episode, but I'm really excited for this guest that I have on with me today. I have Miss Sheena Parker. You're from Atlanta, correct?
I've been in Atlanta for about 15 years. I'm originally from Massachusetts.
Oh, are you from Boston?
No, south of Boston, a little town called Brockton.
Oh, okay, nice. So yeah, I have Miss Parker here with me today, and the topic that we are talking about today, I think it's a little less known topic that, particularly for the culture, we're really not familiar with. That's why I'm really excited to, put you guys on to game. She's just a wealth of knowledge. We're talking about government contracting today. So the topic is government contracting. It's a lot of money in that, and it's money out there for the taking, specifically for us to take it's there for the taking. So with no further ado, Sheena, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Nice. So I usually just start off, give us a little bit of background, I know where you're from now, but, if you can just give us a little bit of your background.
Okay, well, yeah, like I said, I've been in Atlanta for about 15 years. I've always been an entrepreneur. So I've always done different things. I've been in the Army actually for 18 years. I'm looking at retirement soon, and it's totally separate from what my business actually is. So I'm just a multifaceted type of learner. So I was in the real estate industry for about 5 years, and I started off kind of backward. I became a landlord of a condo, and that was like probably the worst experience I ever had. And then I started flipping. I flipped 2 houses, and then I started wholesaling. And I just thought this is all very, very stressful. So I'm not
really. I hope so as well. It's an interesting game. It's a tiresome game, but
it is.
Cool. So you mentioned that you've always been into entrepreneurship. What generated that bug for you? Were your parents entrepreneurs? Did you grow around it, or how did
not one person in my family was an entrepreneur. Barely anyone in my family had a job, let alone tried to be entrepreneurs. So I don't know. I tell my kids I'm from Pluto because I have no idea where it came from. No one talked business around me. I just knew, maybe I can sell this. That was just kind of how it started. I didn't really understand the concept of what business is. I just knew maybe if I sell these basketball cards at 12, maybe I can make some money.
Oh, wow. You was hustling basketball cards?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's what's up. That sounds like me.
Yeah.
Now, are you into basketball?
Not really. I'm kind of forced. My son, he used to play, and my husband's very much into basketball. So
Gotcha.
We're a sports family, but not really into basketball.
Gotcha. Okay, so you started off in real estate. You decided that really wasn't your niche. Then you got into government contracting. What led you down that road?
Well, I guess to be clear, I wasn't into being a landlord. So I had 4 properties, sold them all, and I'm like, if someone says real estate to me, I'm gonna throw up. I can't do it.
Oh my gosh.
But
why not you didn't want to just get property management?
I had property management. It's still,
wow.
Yeah, it's a long story.
Gotcha.
But I just took a break from real estate and just tried to figure out what do I actually want to continue to do. And so the government contracting conversation was coming up in random conversations. Like, why don't you can be a set aside, you're a veteran. And I'm like, I don't even understand the concept of what you're saying. What is a set aside? What is government contracting? And so I just started doing some research, Googling and YouTube University and all these things. And I really am like the trifecta. I really am the unicorn who could maximize on government contracting, and then of course be of value to someone else because I'm bringing that to the table. Minority, Black, minority, female, veteran, and it was like, wow, why is everyone not doing this? But I wanted to stay in real estate, so I wanted to figure out how that could translate, and so it translated into facility maintenance.
Gotcha. About what year was this?
This was in 2016 when the first conversation came up.
Okay, cool, cool. So I think government contracting is a term that, people, we've heard it, but we don't really know what it is. What exactly is government contracting?
So basically, and I'm glad you asked because it's a lot more simple than people think. It's not its own thing. Government contracting is basically your client. So
Okay.
you have a business, for example, if you do property management, that is your business. Now you want to expand your business via government contracting. You say, hey, government, I want you to give me a chance to provide property management services for you. Oh, by the way, you're obligated by, if it's federal, you're obligated to spend a certain amount of dollars with a small business, which is 20%. For
Okay.
with women owned, that's, I believe it's 5% now, and veteran owned is 7%, and service disabled veteran owned is 5%. So you're obligated to spend money with me. You're the largest client, largest buyer in the country or in the world, really, and I want to be able to provide that service for you. So government contracting is really just a whole bunch of regulations around being a client. That's the long and the short of it on the federal side.
Got you. So for these obligations federally, is that annual obligations that they have to set aside for these small businesses, or how does that work?
It's a percentage of whatever. So if they have $1 billion to spend, they have to supposed to allot 20% to small business just off the rip. And
Gotcha.
then women own 5%. So whatever their total dollar amount, even if it goes over their dollar amount, or like right now we're facing a pandemic, a lot of their budgets have been increased or decreased. So they're obligated to spend that certain amount to that specific set aside category.
Gotcha. Now, what exactly are set asides?
So a set aside is the government has to set aside a dollar amount for that particular category. Women owned, veteran owned, service disabled veteran owned. They have a program called 8A, which is kind of similar to a minority set aside, and that's one of the highest of them. Hub zone, if your business happens to be in a hub zone area, then they have to obligate, I think it's 3% for that one, in order to meet their obligations.
Gotcha. So when for these set asides, like for instance, you yourself, you're a veteran and you're a woman, when you check multiple boxes, does that, I guess, like help your chances more so, or how does that work?
Yes. So outside of the 8A, let's just use women owned and veteran owned, for example. Say it is the end of the fiscal year, which is September 30th for the federal government. They're scrambling, trying to spend a certain amount of money because they have to spend it, or else whatever they don't spend is not going to be allotted to them for the next fiscal year starting October 1st. So they say, oh my goodness, we didn't set aside any contracts for women owned. Oh, we didn't set
Wow.
enough away. We didn't set aside enough money for veterans. So me having multiple boxes, I'm fulfilling multiple needs that they may have, which they usually don't fulfill all of their obligations as far as the set asides. So having the multiple set asides is definitely advantageous. In addition to that, sometimes they just solicit for that. They'll put out a contract saying they need janitorial services. This is 100% woman-owned set aside.
Wow. So when you say 100% owned, that company can't have any male co-founders or anything like that. Like it has to be.
They can have, well, it has to be 5149, and also
Okay, so majority.
but also day-to-day operations. So you can't just say, yeah, me and my husband, I'm 51, he's 49, but he's literally doing the whole construction business. Like they come and check.
Oh, so they want you to be physically working within the business as well.
It's little parameters in there. Like if you do all the payroll and you have 100 employees, that's a significant amount of operations. So maybe your husband, for example, does all of the grunt work with the workers, but you're doing every single thing else administratively, then that's equivalent.
Gotcha. So you mentioned that not every office actually utilizes their set asides or their obligations or honor them. So with that, if that's the case, do they just lose that money, or does that go to companies that's not necessarily eligible? How does that work?
Um, kind of apples and oranges. They're supposed to meet it. Now, does every single agency meet it every single time? Then, I mean, it doesn't really have anything to do with that particular amount of money because they can allot that money at the end of the fiscal year to whomever. But if they're getting audited and it shows that they're not allotting any money to any minority, woman, veteran, 8A, then they have an issue. Like 8A is a little bit more intense where they absolutely have to, and that's absolutely mandated. They can't not do that. But because of that, because 8A is such a special program, they usually will meet that. But it doesn't really have anything to do with the money, but for like auditing purposes or karma, ethic purposes, then they will not fulfill that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I follow. Okay, so let's talk about your first contract. First of all, in terms of the industry that you work in, what business do you use for your government contracting?
It's basically what would be considered facility support services. So it's light construction, anything under construction that doesn't require a general contractor's license. So we do janitorial is probably about 60% at this point. My contracts, floor repair, painting, roof repair. We've actually renovated a school bathroom where we just replaced the stalls. So that kind of falls under construction. I'm doing some real estate stuff like complete housing because the government owns houses too. So it's a residential property that needs renovation, but it doesn't technically fall under facility maintenance. It falls under real estate in addition to property management. So that's everything pretty much under facility support services. Oh, and landscaping as well.
Oh, wow. So the government has privatized companies for property management? Oh, wow. See, that's the type of stuff we just don't think about. We just think, oh, that the government has a department that handles that internally. But that's interesting. That's interesting. So in terms of, okay, so your business is facility management. And if a person is interested in getting involved, first of all, did you already have your facility management business or did you specifically go into facility management with the goal of getting into government contracting?
Yes and no. I already was doing a lot of the renovations with the real estate that I was doing for my business, just for my business. So it wasn't really that I had to create the business in order to do contracting because I was sort of kind of doing it. The only thing I really needed to learn how to do was the paperwork, which is
yeah, I bet. Anytime you deal with the government, it's going to be a lot of red tape, right?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I guess compared to some other types of things, no, because they tell you exactly what they want. I fill out this document, write this here, write this there. I love it because I'm, a military person. So I'm like, this is the best thing ever.
Oh, so it's good instructions then, huh?
Oh yeah, there's instructions. When you get into the super $1 million contracts with for federal, then it's very, very, you have to have technical proposals and stuff like that, which, I mean, realistically, you can just pull it offline, do your thing. As long as you can perform, at the end of the day, can you perform the contract? People come to me all the time and say, I want to do government contract. And I'm like, but have you ever had a business? This is not, let me fly by night and start selling some products or providing these services because they're going to expect you to perform.
Be able to complete. That's what I want. Yeah, I bet. That's what I wanted to get into. So being that you already had that experience a bit in facility management with your real estate background, for a person that wants to get involved with the government contracting, do you think it would be ideal first to get your feet wet with, not getting that government money, but actually getting your feet wet with, doing your business for a year or two? Is there actually a requirement, like years of experience, revenue, or any minimums even to do government contracting?
Yes and no. Some ask. So let me clarify, like there's pretty much 3 tiers as far as contracting is going.
Okay.
Federal government, that's where the set-asides matter and they have the obligation, and not all of them are very large contracts, but that's usually the larger $1 million, $1 billion contracts. You have local contracting, which is also like the state, where you register as a vendor with the county, city, school system. There can also be $1 million contracts, six-figure contracts. So they're set aside. There's no real set aside unless they say, hey, we want this to be minority based. Then you have supplier diversity, which is the corporate side where you work for Wells Fargo, you do, landscaping for Boeing, that type of stuff. So there's 3 different tiers and they all have their own ramifications. So someone who wants to get started, I wouldn't say they need any amount of time. So for me, for example, I go into government contracting. I already been doing real estate for some years, and they're asking for at least 2 years of past performance. I don't have 2 years of federal past performance, but I have 2 years of past performance.
Gotcha.
So you can't tell me I don't know how to strip a floor, that type of thing. But sometimes they will say in the contract or the solicitation that you need to have equivalent, like you need to have cleaned an entire campus in the last 2 years. Give me the name and the number of the person who you did that for. And so now you're kind of like, do I really want to, can I tackle this? Do I want to tackle this? Do I want to fight it? Do I want to ignore it? Whatever it is with that. So really you need to understand the concept of business is probably the best advice I can give. If you're new to the industry, but you know how to be agile in business, then you should be fine.
Gotcha. So for the bidding, it actually puts the requirements, like you mentioned that they want you to do, 2 years of this, that, and the other. So do you find it, I guess, does it happen often to where those requirements are I guess, lenient and not as stiff with the 2-year requirements and stuff like that? Or is that kind of much standard?
Well, they usually ask for references.
Okay.
And, references, whoever. I don't want to put out any bad stuff out there.
I got you.
But
Yeah, I feel you.
But if they're saying we need you to have at least 5 years of experience when it comes to something that can't be faked, like paving, like don't say you have 5 years of experience in paving and you get there and they're asking you questions and you're like, I thought I did this. And then it's all bad, because now not only are you probably not going to get that contract after you go to the site visit, they're going to remember your name, your company.
You may go to the DNR.
Prove yourself for the infamy, not really, but sometimes that just really being realistic with yourself and not just saying I want to play the government contracting game. Can I do this even if I don't have the past performance? Can I fudge the past performance, but I know I can actually do it? Then go for it.
So I'm happy you talked about that, because I think a lot of people say they want to do government contracting and it's like, well, I'm gonna create a business and then go get a government contract, and it's like,
this one I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's not necessarily, you can't necessarily do that. So let's talk about, okay, so facility management in terms of your business structure. Did you already have like internal employees? Did you subcontract out your employees? What does your business structure in terms of your workers look like? Are they 1099? Are they
solo dolo? And I subbed everything out. I got lucky when I started real estate. I already had a contractor that I used, and he went and found everybody I needed for every single thing.
And this was after you got the contract?
This is way before. This is before I thought about contracting. This is back when I first started in real estate, back in 2013. And I met him, and everything that I was thinking about doing with government contracting, he could provide the people. I didn't ask any questions. What is the price for this? He gave me the price. I do all the paperwork. Boom, we're bidding on contracts. That's how it started. Now I realize you can't really put all your faith into one human. So, moving forward, just having someone to help, just like with any business, figuring out what you can and cannot handle. And I realized at some point I couldn't handle all of the actual documents, because some of these contract solicitations are like 70 pages long. And so you're talking 25 pages of just data that you have to put in, and then you read it, because some of them are like, you need to write in blue pen on one sentence, and you miss it, and they're going to deem you non-responsive, and you put all these hours into, and torture into it.
That's like a balance sheet almost. If you get one thing wrong, it's
done. It's done. If you don't sign one, and some of them want like 10 separate envelope copies, and it gets really, really crazy. And they want them hand delivered, whatever. So right now I did some interviews today for an executive assistant My daughter was doing my admin stuff. She was a rock star with that.
Nice.
That's where I really, really needed the help, and I could do everything else. I did hire someone at the very beginning. What is that? 2018? No, 2019, to
Okay.
do the contracts for me, and she did a great job. I mean, she knew the industry a lot more than me, so she kind of just pretty much told me what I need to do. So it helped me figure out moving forward. Okay, I got to make sure I fill this part. I can't ignore it. You know, I can't just pretend like they don't need that information.
Okay.
So she was great, and I paid a retainer. All these people are subs, with the exception of my daughter. All these people were subcontractors, and they provided the service, and I just paid whatever.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So let's
But
talk about.
well, I just want to say, I encourage everyone to bid on at least their first contract, because you need to know what right looks like. You need to go through it, the pain and the torture.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. So let's talk about this first contract. What year was this? Well, 2016, right?
No. So I was, like I said, I was always an entrepreneur, so I used to just jump into stuff. I don't know how my husband is still with me, because I'm like, here, look, and I'll just go and do it. Like, I don't know what the end result was. So this was the first time I took my time. When I first started thinking about it in December 2016, I didn't bid on my first contract until June of 2018.
Wow.
Like, I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't comfortable yet. So
Yeah.
I bid on my first contract and I won.
Nice.
And it was terrible. I gave the worst price ever.
Oh, wait, you set your price?
Yeah, but I didn't know I didn't know. I was just like, okay, let me Google some past similar contracts, and the number was just terrible.
That's why you won, huh?
My contractor was, right, exactly. My contractor was like, oh, who's doing that? I mean, he probably could have did it, but he's like, no, not gonna work. So I had to cancel it.
Yeah,
I had to cancel the contract.
So is that how it works? I don't know why I always assume that the government says, hey, we're paying this, and then people bid on it. But you're telling me the actual bidders set their price, huh?
Yes, which is torture. It's torture, because you really want to be, now, okay, let me back up. This is local contracting I'm talking about.
Okay.
This was a city contract, a county contract. So they asked for your price, and it was itemized, for 1 month, for a quarter, for the annual price. And so not only do you want to be like, make it look like you know what you're doing, but also you need to be competitive, and you have no idea what other people are going to bid. Some people, they're the incumbent, or they do the work themselves. I'm not, so I'm using the price of someone else and then putting something on top. So I have to sometimes the standards.
So you have to put a spread.
Yeah, but sometimes, that may not be it. But with federal, sometimes if you have employees, they have the fair wage determination. So they know you have to at least pay this price for for workers. Usually.
Gotcha. So for federal contracts, if you're using federal employees, it's mandated what you have to pay those guys. Interesting.
Right.
So you first contract you bid it on, you won, but then you had to cancel it. Was it any penalties for that? What were the ramifications for that? Because I feel like that's everybody's fear. Like, oh God, I won. I wasn't expecting to win. Now what?
Yeah, well, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't really read, I must have skipped that part about information. I was like, don't care. So I actually canceled within the 48 hours that in the contract. And really, I mean, I can only speak from experience, but I would want to say, if you're communicating with the contracting officer and you're like, whatever the situation may be, I cannot perform this based on X. It's not like you started it and then you just left site and you're nowhere to be found. That's a different type of termination than we haven't even put the shovel in the ground yet, and I'm expressing to you that I cannot perform this contract for X reason. So sometimes it's probably going to be a big problem, depending, but in my case, I got lucky because I was just like, hey,
can't do it. Gonna work.
This ain't gonna work. Yeah. So
gotcha.
yeah, I made it. I made
That's
it.
good. Yeah, yeah, right. So is that standard, like I guess that window to get out, like that 48-hour window, is that standard for the government
Not
contract?
really. No.
Really?
Mm-mm.
So, I don't know. Has this ever happened to you to where you wanted to get out but then you were stuck? Can that happen to companies?
Oh yes. Funny story, not funny story. I have a friend right now who has a significant, she's a sub,
Mhm.
significant janitorial contract, and she quit. And it was a very lucrative contract.
Wow.
And it was just a lot of details. Not to put her out there, but it was a lot of details that weren't her fault at all. And she was the sub, you know?
Yikes.
And she's like, I cannot take it anymore. So, it's not for the faint of heart. And that's why I really try to harp to people that, yeah, I know they make it seem so sexy, but it's what pull back the curtain and reveal. And it also, of course, depends on what you're selling. There was a young man, I watched his interview. He was 14 years old, and all he did was bid on like jail contracts, and he was providing beans and cereal and socks,
Really? Yo, a
free.
14-year-old?
14. He was
Yeah,
so impressive. I got to send you
that
his.
is impressive. You know what? I'm always on YouTube University. Actually, how I found out about you was on YouTube University. Casino is the name. I was on his channel, and I comment and I be comment creeping sometimes, and I'm in the comments, and I'm like, oh wow, this young lady seems to be very, very successful. So then I had reached out to you. I also saw you in a comment on EYL.
Oh yeah, I'm good. Always.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my goodness, that's the same woman. I gotta reach out to her.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of the okay, so we went over what to qualify. So we talked a little bit about the level. So I know that there's local, that's state, right? Is that also county, or how does
Yep.
that? So what are all the levels?
Yeah, so federal is, like I explained, where any federal agencies. So a lot of people just think that's the Army, the Navy. That's also a Department of Agriculture, HUD, all these different federal type agencies. And you would do the same, like going through beta.sam and those websites, and you contact them through that way. And they're the ones that are held at a different obligation. State and local, they have separate fiscal years. They have usually a lower budget. That includes school systems too, like college. So they have different budgets.
Wait, college is included?
Yeah, oh yes.
So like public institutions.
Right, like a state university.
Gotcha. Wow, that's interesting. So the only way, so how does one, is it just the bidding? How does one, I guess, get involved with this? Is it just going to the resources, the websites, or how does that work? And how often does bidding happen?
Multiple times a day. So
Wow.
so beta.sam for the federal contracts, you can look through there and see. You never really know when they're going to post, because I mean, they're still human. So they're posting whenever they get a chance to post. And there's very a wide range of websites that can give you, like, deliver the solicitations for you. Like I can put in facility maintenance for this particular whatever company for them to deliver the services to me. And they'll give me for that day everything related to facility maintenance for the federal, for local, counties, city, whatever. And then I can just kind of go through them and check to see if I'm interested in bidding on it. And it'll take you to that particular website. Now, you also can, for the state level, register as a vendor. And if you register as a vendor, sometimes they'll just send a solicitation for quote or request for quote to you.
Oh, wow.
So they'll just say, hey, here's a statement of work, here's the pictures, like 2 pages, and give me your quote, 1 line, send it back.
So they're basically, in that regard, they're basically seeking you out to see if it's a good fit for them.
Correct.
Okay, cool. And you say this happens multiple times a day in terms of the bidding?
All day, every day.
And this is all year round?
Oh yeah. And when you say bidding, it's not always bidding. It might be a request for quote, or request for proposal. It might be just, hey, send me back a number, because some of the agencies have a threshold where they can just swipe the card. That's like micro purchasing, where you can just, I I think because of COVID, it's up to maybe 10,000, something like that. Don't quote me, but
Mm-hmm.
where they'll just say, hey, we need 10,000 computer mice. Let me, give me your price. And you're like, shoot, I got the connect over in whatever. And I can do it for this amount, put your little spread on top, and you send them an invoice, they swipe the card,
So
boom.
let me ask you, if that's the case, so being a middleman like that, why wouldn't the government just go direct to the source to get their product? Why would they use the middleman? I guess I'm asking.
It's just like, why don't people cut their own grass? It's just one of those things where they don't have time to have, I'll say for the Army, they don't have time for soldiers to cut the grass every 2 weeks. They don't have the manpower.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have, all these things. And I want to loosely say it's like a cultural thing where they need stuff done. They're going to pay someone to do it. Mm-hmm. And then, oh, by the way, you get incentives for certain things, especially if that particular county is trying to fulfill that minority goal or woman goal or whatever. So they get some sort of benefit for that. They've helped everyone out.
Got you. So essentially you're telling me any business, just about any business, there's something that the government needs contractors for just about anything. Like I heard on EYO that they had a distributor for they used a contractor for plates and stuff like that, or even music, which I was like, wow, that's crazy.
They're looking for a guitarist.
Uh-huh.
One guitarist. I'm like, you couldn't find anyone in the organization that could be a guitarist, but any peanut butter. I told my friend the other day, I said, I'm going to bid on this peanut butter contract.
Right.
They needed a pallet of peanut butter or something like that. I'm like, I'm going to do it. But
that's crazy.
Yeah.
With stuff like that, how would you even know the price? You know what I'm saying? Am I just pulling this out of the air? It's oh, I think this should cost this much.
Because the government is trusting you that you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where that's why you really shouldn't just create your business around starting government contracting.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been doing construction for 10 years, you know your prices. I didn't know prices. I was relying on Google University and this one human contractor, so that's it.
That's interesting. I wonder now, a light bulb is starting to go off. For those that don't necessarily have a business just yet, what type of idea do you think it is for a person that wants to get involved with government contracting, but they see maybe it's a Black-owned construction company or whatever around town, or even the contractors around town that's Black or whatever, and that's doing business, and they've been doing it for a while, but they're not into government contracting. What if they got involved with that business and was like, hey, does that happen? Or
yes. That's
okay.
Pretty much what I had been doing, but the benefit is for me to be the prime because I am the trifecta. So most people, they don't want to deal with that paperwork. That's what I hear every single time. They're like, even people that have tried to start or done something similar, they're like, look, I am not doing 12 envelopes of 25 pages of a document.
Wow.
I'm not doing it. I'm just not. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm not leaving no money on the table because of the paperwork. That's what I'm not going to do.
I was like, that's where I excel.
Yeah.
Have my kids line them up and stamp them. And but and because of the industry I'm in, construction facilities, these are, unfortunately, it's male dominated. Mm-hmm. And most of these men are doing manual labor their whole life. They're not sitting behind a computer doing this stuff. So that's where I always excel. I go to them and say, hey, I'll do this. Mm-hmm. What's your price? You perform the work and we live, happily ever after.
So that's interesting. So if a person did do that and it's like, hey, I can really leverage this guy's labor and this guy's experience. If that's the case, does that mean, being that it has to be, for these set-asides to get approved, maybe it needs to be woman-based, minority-based. So with me having to be 51%, would I have to now incorporate a new business, do a new LLC with this person, or how does that work?
Yeah, so you can do JVs, or you can do, what's the other term? It just escaped me. A joint venture, JV, or I can't think of the other name. Oh my goodness. You can create a new business, or y'all can come together.
Okay. Is that the protege that you were talking about? Or you were saying something?
No, okay. Kind of, but that's SBA regulated. You have to check in with them and everything. with the mentor protege program. So it's similar because the mentor protege program, they're supposed to set you up for success, set you up with the alley-oop, and then you go and bid and do the contract and they perform the work. So it's very similar, but it's different because the SBA wants so much from both people, and most mentors don't want to deal with all of that.
Really?
That's what I've been finding. But yeah, so that's very, very, very common. That's preferred, actually. People mention if you're new, just partner up with the company that's already in existence and bring your value. As long as you're, it sounds so corny, but as long as you're like a hard worker and willing to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Then don't just go to people saying, can you help me? And we say it over and over and over in all these seminars and everything, but you just can't go to people like that because at a certain level, you don't really have that kind of time. I want to help you, I'll talk to you, but I just can't sit here and just say, do this, do this, do this. Okay, look, this is what I'm bringing the value to you. I can do all the paperwork. I'll do all you need to do is literally write some numbers in a text message. That's all I need from you. Write your
that's real. Make it seamless for them, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So in terms of the payment structure, okay, so you win this bid. Is it a float that do they give you the money up front, or do you got to float until the completion of the project and that payroll and that's completing that project is all on me? How does that work?
So for my second contract, which I also won, that was a 6-figure contract. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy because, I've never seen that in any business I've ever done put together. So it was a material floor repair. So it was materials plus service. Sometimes when there's a material type contract where they're paying for the material and paying for the service, you can ask for an advance for the materials.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Was I using every drop of money for the materials? Of course not. I was using it to float the workers and all the other things that we needed. And then some, of course, personal capital and credit cards and all that kind of stuff to get to the end. And it's usually net 30. I mean, federal is typically net 15, state and local. It could be 30, 60, 90. If you don't submit an invoice, the right way, they might be on vacation. Like literally that happened to me. It's like everybody's on spring break. I'm like,
wait, what?
Pardon? You know what I mean?
Like when they coming back? What you mean?
What are they doing with my money? Who does that? So those type of things, you have to, I'm not even going to say you have to have capital because some people go out here and they do what they need to do and figure it out. Hey, I usually tell people, especially if I hire a sub that's hiring people, you get paid when I get paid. Now, if that doesn't work, because some of them don't work. Yeah. But sometimes it's, a couple of weeks, or if it's a quick turnaround, 1 week or a couple of day contract, I'll usually just try to pay them, or I just say, hey, a week after your performance. And really, some people just don't do right when it comes to working. So contracts and all that, they may not ever get paid. If they work on the job or decide they don't want to do it and all that other kind of stuff, that's a whole nother conversation. But just making sure that your paperwork is tight even before you're talking about the money, Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of accounting and paperwork. So do you have you say you're good at that stuff, right?
No, accounting is I failed accounting 3 times in college.
Girl, I dropped my business minor because I couldn't get past accounting 102. I said, you know what? This whole balance sheet and one number off, it ain't balanced. I'm good.
Ooh, and I'm like, I love numbers. I love money. I can count in my mind, not the same.
Right.
So that part, it was killing me because now I'm in a whole realm I've never experienced. I never had a $70,000 check, you know what I mean? Here you go. And then I have to figure out the tax and making sure that I'm not paying all this money back in taxes. So I did have an accountant pre the contract, but I really started getting into the bookkeeping heavy because at the end of the year, you will literally be curled up. Even if you have an accountant, sometimes they're not sometimes an accountant may not see exactly what you're trying to do. Like I hired my kids, like doing that. That's very, very helpful. Because they
It's a tax write-off too, somehow, right?
But you know, some people are like, I'm gonna do it for a tax write-off. I'm like, okay, but if you're only making, you know, $500, like that tax write-off ain't really, you know what I mean? Like, let's be realistic of what you're actually trying to do. So yeah, it's a lot. It's payroll will take you out. And I really thought it was the easiest thing ever. I'm like, just put their W-4 in there and it'll be fine.
Yeah. Not the case, right? Wow, that's interesting. So does it ever get to a point to where, how does it work if like you gave them your number, they approved your bid, they give you the contract, but you realize, okay, you didn't back out, you're gonna complete it, but you need more money. Can you ever go back and get more money, or is it like, nah, we agreed on this, it's over with, bro, make it work?
That actually never happened to me that way. The closest thing is when we asked for an advance and they said yes, which was crazy. I don't know why they say yes. But thank you, you know, but that goes back to, can you provide can you service this contract? Do you have people that you can ask money? Do you have personal credit card, business credit? Or if you're partnering with someone, are they willing to put their own money in because they know they're going to get the money back? That's probably getting started the easiest thing. If you're working with an already established contractor or construction or whatever, hey, can you hire these people until we finish this project? It's only going to take 2 weeks. And they're like, yeah, you know, some of them are like, yeah, because I know the money's coming. That's kind of typical in the construction realm, that they get paid later, you know.
Gotcha. Yeah. So with whether it's they give you an advance, or they say they're going to give you payment in full at the completion of it, or they're giving you a draw, or whatever the case, how is it that I guess, is it room to, well, you say it is room for negotiation. The contract in general is room for negotiation? Not really.
Ooh, well, okay, let me say this. I'll use my example as well for the flooring. It was 8 different locations for replacing taking out their carpet, putting vinyl flooring in. And along the way, they said, hey, can you do this other portion of another property? Yes. But because it's kind of like last minute, you gotta expect that we're gonna mark it up just a taste, if you can. Like if it says, this is how much you said you're going to charge us per square foot, then that's for the life of the contract. But if it's something that can possibly, hey, we had to hurry up and get emergency materials, so it's going to be a couple of dollars more, and we added a couple of services which weren't necessarily a standard price. Like we did waxing, floor waxing, which can range. I mean, it can range tremendously. So that added a little bit more money on top of it. So it wouldn't be a negotiation, so to speak. It's just an additional service. And I did that as well with a janitorial contract, where they're like, hey, can you do some of this COVID cleaning? I sure can.
Right.
You want to do it tomorrow?
It's gonna cost you.
Right. Yeah. It's gonna cost you, you know. So I guess that would be considered negotiation. Do you need these other services?
Gotcha. So is there like stiff deadlines for the completion of the project? Is there frequent check-ins in terms of where the money is going, or how does that work?
Not the money, because usually you're getting paid after it's all complete anyway. Okay. But as far as the deadlines, usually it's really, you just can't go there and be a bump on a log. Like you have to get it done. Usually they'll have milestones where multiple locations, you need to have 2 done in 2 weeks, something like that. And of course, if you go faster, they just love you forever. Janitorial is probably one of the most stringent, like you need to have this done, because they have multiple things in place sometimes. For the one that I had, that's janitorial, they have the carpet people coming right after us. So we can't, you know, lag on any of that. We have to complete by the end of this particular day.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So what are, for non-performance, right? What are some, I guess, like if things are out of your control, like you mentioned your homegirl's issue, well, if something is out of your control, but it's still under your name, are there like what happens? Like I can't control if this contractor didn't come to work. Like what you want me
Literally
to
just
do?
happened to me last week, and I almost had a nervous breakdown. Let me
Oh
quit.
my goodness. I'm
But
sorry.
that literally happened. It was a request for quote, so it was a quick little 2-page thing, and he didn't show up. Well, no, let me back up. I got a price from a contractor that I use,
Mhm.
and then he dropped off the face of the earth when I won.
No call, no show, nothing.
I
Yikes.
mean, no, we didn't even get to the no show. He just, hey, we won. Hello, like where you at?
That's crazy.
So then I had a backup person who he had something wrong with his vehicle. And he went and got because he had to get a background check. So he went and got the background check, got the badge, paid the $20. Something happened. I'm like, hey, just checking in. We're going tomorrow, right? Crickets. And I'm like, now I'm starting to get, whoo.
Right.
Nerve-wracking, because this is not even something I can do. I can't do drywall painting. Like I can't crack open a wall without holding up YouTube while I'm trying to do it. Like that's not gonna work.
Right.
These people gonna be looking at me like, what is she doing? So the guy, he didn't answer, but then he answered at like 11 o'clock at night, basically saying, because I kind of told him off a little bit in the text. I respectfully told him off, and he's like,
Right.
how can you say something like that when I'm having problems with my truck? I'm like, dude, like,
Right.
I'll bring you there. Like, that's not the issue. You got to communicate.
Yeah.
You got the picture. Third person got COVID. And I'm like, okay, so is this a sign for me not to do it? And I sympathize with that, but still that doesn't help me.
Yeah. Business is business. Yeah, that's true.
So what am I supposed to do? So I had to cancel that contract.
Yikes.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
tough.
literally, because we're already going past, you have to perform within 30 days. And with each person kind of falling off, it was continuing on and on and on and on. And I was like,
That's a lot of pressure.
ooh, yeah.
Girl, I already ain't got no hair. Hey, so
do you really want to do contracting?
right. Yeah, it sounds like it. I'm happy we're having this discussion. So what do you think? So when you're bidding, you don't get to see who you're bidding against or anything like that?
No, the only thing you can see is it
How many?
might show who, but it won't show like what or price.
Okay. Why do you think, well, I don't know if you know the numbers or not. I don't know the numbers. Do you know like what percent of, like, even when you're out, I'm sure, you're in the industry, so like the who's who, I'm sure, in your area in terms of, who's getting government contracts. Do you see many of us bidding on these contracts?
Yeah.
You do?
I'm in Georgia. This is what.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. That's the one example to where it's like, yeah, that's
everywhere.
That's
It's
good.
funny because I went to when I first got started, I went to a pre-bid meeting, and I felt so out of place because I was the only girl.
Okay.
I'm usually either the only girl or the only black girl usually, and I'd be like, and all these dudes are like, hey man, oh you on this one too? Hey, and
Right.
wow, they've obviously been doing this for a long time. So I see a lot of us at the local level. Now, as far as federal, you won't really know because you will know, but not really know, because a lot of federal contractors, they'll do anywhere. Like they'll do all out of state and everything like that. So it won't really be organic to Georgia. But as far as performing work, oh yeah.
Got you. Have you done any federal, or has it like all state or?
I did one federal contract a long while ago, but because I'm still in the military, I kind of didn't really go after them as much, but I'm getting back into serving that purpose. Yes.
Nice. Okay. How often is it that well also, can you go back over the sites? I know you said Sam's.
Beta.sam.
Beta.sam. What's some other resources that people can go to do some research in terms of these contracts and what's available? Is that the primary one?
That's for federal. Yes, that's
Okay,
where actually the contracting officers will go and put the solicitation or pre-solicitation or sole source contracts or sources sought, which I would always encourage people to go after sources sought. They're basically just warming up the streets, asking who's available to do this. And then you submit your little information, and then they put out the solicitation later, whatever. But you kind of like said, hey, I'm here, that type of thing. Because most people won't acknowledge those. But I use Gov Directions. That
Okay.
is a free and a paid service. I'm all about free
I'm like,
first.
girl, I feel you. Me too. Uh-huh.
Some things you do, you have to pay for. So Gov Directions, I signed up with them, and that's the one that I mentioned. You put in your category, and they send solicitations to my email every day.
Okay.
And it's real sexy the way they have it lined up. It's perfect for my personality. I just click on the link, boop, and I did that for free. They send it to you, but when you click on the link, you can't go to the site. But I used to do, I'm like, okay, this is out there. Copy the title, the link, and then just Google it, and I'll find it anyway. But then I was like, okay, Sheena, stop being cheap because this is a good service. And I did it for like a year, a whole year. And so I paid for the service, only $120 a year or something like that.
Okay.
And, so now when I click on the link, it goes to that particular vendor's website, and it saves some time. So that's a really, really good one. Gov Directions.
Okay.
Trying to think of some that I would endorse. RFP Watch is another one. I believe that's also free.
Is that rfpwatch.gov or .com? Not sure. Okay, that's a simple Google search.
Yeah, that's a Google search.
Yeah.
Really, I would say for beta.sam, that's federal. Just go to beta.sam so you can get familiar with it anyway.
So for local, do a person have to type in whatever state they're in, whatever city they're in?
Exactly right. So for Georgia, I can put in my county. So Gwinnett County Procurement or City of Atlanta Procurement.
Gotcha.
If you register as a vendor, they'll be sending you stuff. So if you're not an email person, probably not for you. Because you're going to miss something. They're going to say, we need by close of business tomorrow, we need this. And it might just be it might just be one number, your quote. So it's doable, but if you don't monitor your email and all that kind of stuff, you'll miss a lot of stuff. I mean, you just can't do it.
About what % of your business is I guess general clients, and then what % is specifically government contracting? Probably throughout the course of a year.
Probably 0.01 regular people.
Wow, so you do mostly government contracting.
Yeah, because
so you staying busy. That's what's up. That's awesome.
It's really I just made that decision because I don't like begging people for money, and I don't like begging people to do business with me. And the government already wants to do business with me, so.
That was my concern. I don't know why in my head I just assumed that, well, it's probably not enough work to keep each contractor, each business busy throughout the year, but that's definitely reassuring. 99% of your business is 99.9% of your business. That's awesome. Congrats on that.
Oh, thank you. It's definitely, it's very overwhelming, really. And that's why you really should have someone else help you with the contracts, because I don't know if you ever seen the movie War Dogs. That's kind of what got me started. And it's about these young guys who kind of hacked the system of federal contracting. And one of the things that they did was they said they bid on 10 contracts a day.
Wow.
I was doing one a month. I was like, oh my goodness, I need to get with it. So, it's the power of numbers. But can you still handle it? It goes back to, what if you win all of them? What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
When you win, can you turn it down? Like, nah, that's okay, I changed my mind.
You can.
But it's still like,
they're gonna remember that name. It's a small community. Especially operating at a local level. It's now, will they always see your name and say, she just, I can't stand her? It's human based. So is this contracting officer, a jerk anyway? And they're like, delete their whole profile. I don't want everyone to see their name, maybe. And they can just say, oh, life happens. It's okay, no problem. On to the next.
It's probably a good idea for people interested in government contracting that has a business. It's probably a good idea to make friends with the people that works at the Office of Procurement, huh?
They say that. Yeah, I will say yes. I would definitely say yes, but organic friendships, okay?
Right.
Don't bring those Subway sandwiches and that coffee to that office. You will get run up out of there. I heard that so many times. They're like, who are you? Thank you for the coffee.
Right. Bye. That's so funny. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit. I wanted to get into this concept of subcontracting. So say I bid for something, I'm not the winning bidder. Is it like announced who is the winning bidder and then I can contact them like, hey, I'm available to subcontract? How does that work? How does one become subcontractor?
For federal, yes. So it's kind of multi-layered. I'm going to talk at the local level because it's kind of different than federal. So at the local level, they're supposed to send you the bid tabulation with everyone's name and everyone's bid. That's how I knew. Sometimes I'm like, what was I thinking? I'm in the stratosphere.
Wait, they show everyone's bid?
Mm-hmm. And then you look crazy, like, oh my God, I can't believe I bid so high.
And it show your company name and everything?
And your name.
They exposing people.
Exposing like this person. And then they'll put a note like non-responsive. Even if they say non-responsive if you don't, like I said, sign something or you miss one thing. And I'll be like, why am I not responsible? So with that, you're supposed to get that, or you're supposed to get something that says, hey, you weren't selected. The winning bid was this by this company. Mm-hmm. And if you don't win, they are required, any of these agencies are required by law to give you a debrief. Now, they're real funny because I've asked for a debrief a few times and they're literally supposed to meet with you or some sort of really intense meeting to go over everything, but they won't usually do that. They just call you and say they don't want nothing on record,
So what's that debrief for? Is that to tell you why you didn't win or what you can do better? Okay.
Exactly right. But they'll just say, hey, I'm calling about your debrief request. You didn't get it because you want the lowest bidder. Okay, is that all you need? All right, bye.
So is that generally how you win, is just to undercut everybody and be the lowest bid? How often is it that they're not going with the lowest bidder?
Great question. Probably 40%. They're not going with the lowest bidder. They call it the lowest irresponsible bidder. That's like the term around the industry. And this is for local. So it's for federal, it's usually the opposite. Like, you have the wage determination. So that helps a lot of stuff. And then fair market price. So it's like, come on, dude, I know you cannot renovate all 20 of these houses for $10,000. Like, that's just insane.
That's interesting. So like, I wonder for your county locally, being that they're exposing everybody's bids and everybody around town know what you bid it, is there, because I imagine it's a small circle, you know what I'm saying? Everybody know everybody that's in government contracting. With that being said, is it ever like this atmosphere to where it's like, oh, so-and-so bidded this and he the reason why, you know what I'm saying? You know how things is, he messing up the market for us all.
That's fun, because that's in my mind. That's exactly what I said. This food and mess it up for everybody. But, I don't think it's really, maybe I don't go to enough events.
Okay.
But, it's never like you looking at the side eye like they're going,
yeah.
That's why we couldn't get this contract. But, and I think you asked about the subcontracting earlier. So yes, but my point about the whole thing with the debrief is sometimes they won't tell you anything. And I'll look at all the ones I submitted and it's like 2 months later. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, was this ever awarded? They're like, oh yeah, it was awarded back in such and such. I'm like, wow, well, thanks, pretty much thanks for letting me know. So they don't always tell you anything.
Wow, that's interesting.
Which is whack, but I mean, so if you have time to ask someone, hey, do you need any help with this contract? Then.
Okay. And how often is it that they're like, oh, no, I want it. If they're not mandated to subcontract, because you said on federal, they are mandated, but
sometimes mandated locally too, especially for minority, like in certain, it's so funny to say this, but in certain like predominantly Black counties in Georgia, they, like DeKalb County, you will not get a contract unless you sub it, or if you're a minority yourself. Like, they don't care what you got to say. 20% will be, they even have.
That's beautiful.
It is. And they even have a subcontracting agreement. Like, they give it to the sub. They're like, okay, who's the sub? Okay.
Wow.
They pay them directly. They don't play.
So
So
that's conditional. Once the person that has the main contract, they name their subcontractor.
right off, if they're not a minority, yep, right off the rip.
That's
Yeah,
interesting.
I'm not trying to hear it.
I
So
wonder what other states are like that. Well, what other counties are like that? That's interesting. Do
yeah.
you do well, you've done one federal. I was going to ask you do you plan to do other states, other counties?
Yeah, I am expanding a little bit, only because, there's only so much that is going to be available. Even though there's a lot, like I don't want to get trapped in the janitorial over and over and over. And it might be like they're building up Alabama, and I'm like missing out on that wave because I don't want to go. So I have been expanding a little bit. And it's funny because I was just telling somebody earlier that Savannah is almost 5 hours from me, but like what Birmingham is 2 hours. So I'm like, it really makes sense to slide on over that state line and perform for another state if it's feasible.
That makes sense. So let's talk about the money. How lucrative in terms of the contracts that's available? Like I know they were saying like it's $1 trillion industry, right? It's just like we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. Like for instance, for rentals, a lot of people feel like I'm a landlord, so a lot of people don't want to rent a Section 8. But I look at it like the government gonna pay their bills. You know what I'm saying? Pandemic or not.
On the third of every month, that thing will be there. Win, lose, or draw. So,
yeah.
Well, I would say in the midst of any type of issue, that's when the money increases, unfortunately. War, pandemics, because they're the only ones with the money, really. There's some agencies like that goes to the supply diversity as well. As far as corporate agencies, a lot of them, they were able to get the SBA money, so now they're throwing it at a whole bunch of projects that maybe they couldn't do before. So it's I'm sorry, what was the question? Because
no, this is all good. I was just asking, is it sustainable, government contract? Being that your business is 99.9% of government contracting, it still seems that it is a sustainable, lucrative route to go as opposed to a traditional client.
Okay, yeah, that's a great question, because just here recently I read my favorite person that got me into government contracting is Eric Coffey, and I praise his name everywhere. But, he had sent something out about they're going to mandate that people who are doing government contracting have 20% of their business to like regular business, not government contracting.
Really?
Like 80% can be government contracting. I don't know what the rhyme or reason behind that is, and it hasn't been implemented yet, and I don't know the ramifications, but it's sustainable for now, 1,000,000%. Some people don't even talk to regular clients, and I get it because it goes back to kind of begging people to believe in your service. Like I clean houses. Like what else do you need to, like, why are we doing a whole thorough, background of exactly how do I wax on, wax off? Like the government is saying, I want you to clean. If it's not done right, you delay in pay, not pay. It's very structured. You know what I mean? Like it's the best level of sustainability to me. Like you said, they have to pay their bills.
It sounds like a good customer. It sounds like the ideal customer. You know what I'm saying? And it seems as though they're hands off. They're gonna let you do your job, what you signed up for, and it's like, let me know when you finished. Okay.
Want that, because that was one of the reasons why my friend was having an issue, because the contracting officer at the place of performance, not the person awarding the contract and vetting all the documents, but the person who's supposed to be in charge of the contractors at that physical location was the issue. Now, the one that I just did, the janitorial, they're like, oh yeah, here's a badge. We'll see you when you're finished, and then the one that I actually had to cancel for the painting, there was gonna be a police officer standing there the whole time.
Oh, so it varies. It's contract by contract base. So like sometimes there can be, does the government send out like a project manager or something to oversee? Like,
well, you're usually, I would say maybe not the outdoor type of contract. I don't know how that works as far as like paving and heavy construction, but anything internal, usually you have a facilities type officer anyway. And you have their contact information. So it's not really like the government is sending someone. It's like the Department of Agriculture, Water Resource Center. That's where you're going to be, the place of performance. So that particular building has a facility officer internally that works for the water center or whatever.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So they're the ones that are monitoring or not monitoring, whatever their duty is to make sure it gets done.
Okay.
Human based.
Gotcha. So what, I know we're coming up on time here. I got maybe 3 more questions for you. I'm gonna let you go.
Oh,
Okay,
right.
cool. Perfect. What's some, say for instance, if like, do they send somebody at the completion to like make sure everything is done to their liking and their satisfaction? If they're not, are they really anal about it? Or it's like, oh, well, you know, the floor should have been this way, and do you have to go and fix that, or how does that work?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. And I mean, even down to those baseboards. What is that?
Really?
Yeah. But I mean, okay, so think about it. You're in a hotel and you see hair on the soap or you see hair in the sink, you're gonna flip out because it's like, I'm paying to perform. Or the flooring, you know, you said when we did the flooring, they were giving an example of a company they hired to do wallpaper. And they said that now granted, it is kind of jacked up what the actual contractor did, but they said they put the wallpaper sideways. So the pattern didn't jive because, you know, you go up and down, then it ends at a certain point. But when it went sideways and they went to connect, it wasn't even and it looked crazy. So, you know, come on, you got to like really do what you're supposed to do. So it shouldn't be like, oh, why are they on my back? You know, no one likes to be micromanaged, but just do what you're supposed to do. And then eventually you probably will have a little bit of grace. Like with the flooring, that was a fire station. So they lived there. Some of the guys lived. So they weren't really looking. They were just like, oh, wow, that's really cool. You know, they're like super hands-on people anyway. So they're like, wow, how'd you do that? You know, it wasn't malicious. It was just, you know, they're there.
Okay. That makes sense. So, and then too, you know, obviously, you know, your name is on the line. You want to do a good job. I mean, your work product essentially is your resume. And I imagine if you do a good job on the one job, they'll remember that. And once they see your name come across bidding on another contract, it's like, oh, you know, I know this company, they do good work. You know what I'm saying? So that's really cool. Well, I wanted you to tell me a horror story. Well, I guess you kind of already did that. It just happened recently with the gentleman. So we're good on that. What's been your favorite contract to date, though? So forget the horror story. Let's get into some good stuff. What's been your favorite?
I would say probably the one that I'm performing. Well, we just finished yesterday is the janitorial because it's for a state university. So. Okay. Last year we were brand new. They gave us like one of the most old, dilapidated, nobody even stays in the building just to test us out. And they said that we made that building look like it when it was brand new.
Oh, wow.
And they gave us they fired a couple of other contractors and gave us their stuff like really quickly. Like, oh my God, we fired this person. Can you perform? And they're like,
wow.
Yeah. So then this year, they just left us alone and they were like, we know your work. And they were they're just really good people to work for. Mm-hmm. And then like that's one of my favorites. And then the flooring one, that's my 6-figure contract. So it's like, I made it, you know, it was a good feeling to know that this can really do something. And it was a good segue because there's a period of time where I was bidding on contract and wasn't winning nothing for months.
Really?
That does something to your ego for a minute, you know? So had that been the beginning, I would have been like, nobody wins these, you know, it's all fake. It's only for people that know people, good old boy system. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it's really, so it really helped propel me to keep the motivation going. So those are probably my 2 favorites.
Okay, nice. So what's next for you? I know you mentioned you may be venturing off into Alabama. What's some things are you getting into other niches, other industries? What's next for you?
Just something about real estate just keeps on pulling me back.
See, come on back home.
so this year, actually, we moved into a new house and I became a landlord again against everything I said before. I was like, okay, I have amazing tenants, which I'd never had before. Mm-hmm. So it kind of got the bug back going, and I'm trying to do maybe some non-traditional type of landlording. Like I just watched a video this morning about mobile homes. I'm like, ain't nobody trying to do no mobile
Nice.
homes, but the way they explained it
Uh-huh.
might be more like my personality. So
Uh-huh.
I
Was
did.
this mobile home elite?
Mm,
It's a husband and a wife, black
yes,
husband and
yes,
wife. Yeah,
yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Nice. I
I
love it.
wasn't this morning. I kept skipping over it every day. I'm like, I ain't nobody thinking about no mobile homes. But
Uh-huh.
it was good. It was really really informative. So that's I mean, I was doing property preservation for a while. That was stressful. So who knows? With me, I just kind of say, ooh, I want to learn about that. Let me try it, and then, keep
Yeah.
it or leave it.
Okay. Cool, cool, cool. Well, this has been great. This is everything I imagined to be. I think I learned so much. I know I learned so much. So I appreciate your time for sharing your expertise with us. You know what? I got a lot of family in Atlanta. Well, not Smyrna, Douglasville,
Yeah.
Lawrenceville, and Powder Springs.
Okay, yeah.
And, yeah. So next time I'm in Atlanta, maybe I can come by, shadow you for a while or something like that.
Hit me on the hip. I'll be here. Yes,
Cool,
ma'am.
cool, cool. Well, this has been great, Sheena. I appreciate your time. One last thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any tips of advice that you would give to somebody that's starting out or wants to get involved?
I would say, what's a good tip? One good tip. Probably to understand business.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be extremely agile, and you can't just get into it because you think government contracting is cute, fun, or sexy. You have to at least have somebody that you can work with that's in the industry, or you have to just do everything you can to learn the industry. Oh, and another thing, if you're approaching people about government contracting, you need to come with some questions, not just like, I want to get into government contracting,
Mm-hmm.
like, period. Like, no, because it's so broad. Like, we only
Yeah.
talked for an hour, and it's still, there's people probably still like, I need more, which I understand. So come to people with something, and also to understand the concept of business, not just jump into government contracting.
Mm-hmm. Good, good, good. Nice. So you got any, where can people find you at? Where can they reach you as on your social media handles? I know you said you're a LinkedIn person, so let's share your LinkedIn, right? If you're cool with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Sheena Parker on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, Miss Parker, this has been great. I don't know why I say Miss Parker. I just think of Friday, Miss Parker. Like when I see your last name was Parker, I was like, Miss Parker.
Yeah, I get a joke at least once a week on that too. So yes. Uh-oh. Hello.
Your podcast. Thanks for listening. You there, Sheena?
Okay, I'm back. Yes.
Okay, cool. I was just wrapping up. I thought I had lost you for good. You're back. Okay, cool. So yeah, this has been episode 9 of For the Culture podcast. She is Miss Sheena Parker. I'm your host, the one and only Tay Jordan. You can find me on Instagram at @1_TAY Jordan like Mike. You can also follow the handle on Twitter at _ For the Culture on Instagram and Twitter. Peace and love. Godspeed.